Hi, I'm Timothy Bartel. Well, if you've been listening along with us, we've reached the end of book one of Calafia, an Adventure, which is a modern retelling of a 15th century romance about, well, it's about several things. The 15th century romance is largely about the adventures of a prince of Britain, Esplandian, and his noble deeds. My retelling focuses on a supporting character in the deeds of Esplandian who I think needs her own adventure. In fact, I think she's a better hero than Esplandian himself, and that's Calafia, the queen of a mythical group of Amazons from a legendary island called California. As I mentioned in the introductory video to this series, this is the first mention of a place called California in all of literature. Of course, there were people living in California in the 15th century, going about their lives not having had any contact with Montalvo or his Spanish culture. But Montalvo comes up with this word California and invents this idea in the European mind of a place far in the West where Amazons live, mythical beasts live, and that idea has informed conceptions of California ever since. So, book one is a refocusing of the story onto Calafia as the hero. And Calafia, of course, has escaped with Talankay, kind of the only one of the Christians that she respects, and also one of the only men who has gained her respect. She escapes with Talankay from the fall of Byzantium. Now, this is actually a historical event. In 1453, the Sultan Mehmed did, in fact, besiege and successfully conquer Constantinople. He renamed it Istanbul. And this is a really important event in world history. I've set the Calafia story at the fall of Constantinople. Originally in Montalvo's romance, it's not set at the fall of Constantinople. It is set at a siege of Constantinople where the Christians end up victorious. But I wanted mine to be set at a real moment of cultural change and crisis. And so I set it at the fall of Byzantium. And I think it draws out some interesting character moments for not just Calafia, but also for Talankay. This is not a man who is living in a victorious culture that's moving forward as far as he knows forever, stable and victorious. This is a man who is seeing his whole culture, his whole way of life fall. And he, of course, ends up caught up into this romantic adventure with this great queen of the Amazons, Calafia. So the last we saw them, they were being carried by griffins away from burning Byzantium that has been taken over by one of their enemies, the Sultan Mehmed. So book two picks up right where book one ends. This is book two, Hephaestus, part one. Just as a man accompanies his dream into the sea of sleep, so Talankay has followed Calafia into the two great oceans that swell up between Gibraltar and the sandstone cliffs of calling California. Let us, too, flee the dying flame of Constantine, never to be relit in eastern lands where deserts spread. For all that east had passed away like Carmel's coastal fog by noon. A Turkish pen redrew its borders then. The Amazon and Christian find themselves alike as refugees, and Calafia's heart accepts new knowledge. Byzantium has changed not just her mind, but all her rule, and now the Californian could admit that men, some men, can match a woman's strength, and marriage, that taboo from tales, might find a place beneath the bowing palms. For this she grieved. She grieved each night as wise Leota read the stars and wheeled the fleet southwest across the long Atlantic. Pure Manelli wept, beside his brother for the loss of family, city, home. Pacific winds retaught their bodies sweat and sleep. They saw the wide and mapless isles, met faces strange, unlearned in Christian lore. Then all the earth felt green and fresh created, ripe for saints and shrines, and Mehmet's riven east now seemed the dream. And Calafia told her men of Artemis, her capital in California's south, the city of adobe homes as gold as soil that kept east wind from chapping skin, of pine slat roofs which filtered sun rays down between buffed abalone shells to light a room or warm a pool or basin. City of the sand-packed streets, each bordered in ascending oaks, which led to palace halls composed in timeless sandstone cliffs. The city of the famous mason Petra, who shaped city walls from native stone cut from the quartz-veined California hills. She wielded ancient hammers that had worked the citadel of Troy and passed down to a mason's daughter who defected to the Amazons and woke in them a love of art, of lime and labored stone. The city of the girls in waiting, who were trained for when they could be strapped with skulls and capped in high black plumes as Amazons. The city of the dreaded jail, where men unfortunate were kept to sew in women's wombs new warrior girls. The city of the seer, who the girls call Lupin of the West. Grave Alessandra, blessed with Delphic blood. The queen and seer ruled from thrones perfected from two living oaks, on which their mothers, grandmothers, and all the line of Cala sat since Migos left the western shores and memories first formed in California. The coastline was in sight, and all the Amazons now talked of their triumphal entry into Artemis. But off the bow, a boat was seen, containing just two sailors, girls too young to muster with the eastbound troops. Herma and Hella were their names, and each displayed a stripe of blood across her youthful, parched, determined face. They'd been adrift for days and whooped with joy to see the Queen's return. And when they climbed aboard, they told this tale. That tale will be in part 2 of book 2, which is coming next. Thanks for listening. This has been part 1 of book 2 of Calafia, an Adventure. If you'd like to follow along, Calafia can be found in ebook form on Amazon. Thanks. I'm Timothy Bartel.